Welcome to Adventures in Solitaire. Today we'll be talking about do-it-yourself card creation for solo role-playing. So as stated, today we'll be talking about do-it-yourself card creation for solo role-playing. Previously I've talked about do-it-yourself projects. More specifically, I have mentioned, albeit briefly, that do-it-yourself can be used to greatly enhance your solo experience. So today I wanted to talk about a specific program and how you can utilize it to completely customize your solo experience, or possibly even change the way that you think about solo role-playing altogether. So you'll have to forgive, or hopefully you can forgive. Today I'll be recording my screen. It's the first time I've done that. And I'm not going to have a picture-in-picture of what you typically see in my hands or a table, because I won't be working with any of that. It'll just be, what you see on my screen. So hopefully that won't be too dull for you today. Now, there are a lot of card creation tools out there, from simple paint programs that we all have access to complete software suites dedicated to card creation. Today we'll be covering the best tool I have found for this process. This tool does, however, come at a monetary cost. But don't let that stop you from watching this video. I will be discussing ideas and concepts that will work with almost any card creation tool that you may use, including just a simple paint program. Though I'll be honest, most of it will be using the card creator. I'll also do my best to index this video after I've uploaded it, so that you can skip to those sections that matter to you. Today we'll be using Card Creator by Pixelato. Card Creator is quite simply the most robust and easy to use tool I have seen to date. As always, that does not mean that there isn't a better tool out there, but so far as I've seen, this is, as I stated, simply the best. It does carry a price tag of $39.99 US at last check, but I would argue that given the cost we already pay for someone else's idea of a solo tool over and over again for some of us, it will likely make up for its cost in what it provides. So with that being said, let's move on to the tool itself and how it has the potential to change your solo role-playing experience. Alright, so on the screen here, we have the main menu. This is what you're going to see when you first launch the Card Creator. And typically you'll begin by clicking New. And once you're there, you'll be preceded with a pretty blank slate. It's a pretty clean interface. If we were to click the only button that's available in our work area, then we would see this screen pop up. Assign blueprint to new card set. So it's important to talk about blueprints. A blueprint is going to define what an entire card type is going to be like, so that you aren't constantly having to redesign the same card of a certain type over and over again. And it's a really simple process. So if we click Create New Blueprint, we are presented with this. So this is a layer-based tool. If you're familiar with any paint programs, that concept, or most paint programs, that concept should be pretty familiar to you. Layers basically provide us a way to work with a layer at a time. Think like layers on, if you've ever seen them, the old projection machines, where you would sometimes layer things on top of each other. So for example, we have a background layer, and I can change the color of the background. Let's do that. And then if I go back to the top content layer, and you can see that these are ordered from top to bottom, we can now see that my color my background is blue. Now we can even go to the border, and we can change the color of our border. So if we wanted something a little bit more regal, we might try to get some sort of a goldish color to it, to get a golden border. Probably deserves to be a little brighter for that border, but in fact, let's go ahead and let's do that. And so there we have a blue background and gold. That's a semi-royal. I guess we could go full on purple if we wanted to. So back to the main layer. If we were to move our cursor to the edges of any various panel, and that's what these two things are called, are panels, we can actually create more panels. So if I go roughly to the center here, I've now created a set of 3 panels. And I can go here, and I can go here. Let's try to get this set right. Now we have all of our panels here. And I can continue to divvy these up and change these about as I want. Right? And then each of these panels is of a different type. These are text panels, while these are image panels. I know this because of the icon type that I'm seeing, as well as what I'm actually seeing on the screen, what they look like. The text has text in it, and these images are full white. Although I can edit the background of those images, they won't be able to be passed through like you see in simple text so that the background shows, because we're expecting to show an image here. But if you were to click on twice the panel, you will get an option to change its type. So for example, I could choose icon, which I'm going to do with all of these. And then from there, depending on the type that you have selected, you'll have different options. As you can see, we have default pick icon for the icon panel. And we have a bunch of standard text text options for the text panel. But let's go back to the icon, because I want this to really sink in as to the utility that you have here. So if I go to pick icon, there are so many icons in this tool. It is just it's like crazy. So I might do clothing and armor and select an icon from there, and you can choose the color of the icon. And then I might go here and choose another icon, and we can continue from there. All right, so from here we have 4 different types of icons. Now I'm not real happy with the color here being gray against that dark background, so I'm going to make those pop a little bit more. And I'll also go ahead and change the color of the text. All right, so here, just with the little time that we put here, I've got myself a little text area. Maybe I want to name the type of card that it is. I don't think that would be needed, but just throwing that out there. Maybe I could put a number or a symbol up here as well. And then I also have these different image conjecture resources that are provided freely with the tool. So this seems really incredibly basic, and it may seem to you like, gosh, it's a little simple. I was hoping for something a little bit more. So with that said, I'm going to show you something else that I worked on a little bit before we got started, so that I wouldn't waste too much of your time, and you could kind of see where it can get a little bit more, you can get a little bit more going on. So I'm going to hit check mark, and you'll see that we have now our template with our first card, and I can add cards, and I can modify each of these pictures for each one, and they'll be individual. Now in the template, by the way, I would highly recommend that you do not choose a base icon or text unless you just need it from memory, because once you change it here, it will reflect across all cards. Alright, so let's go ahead and let's do what I said I was going to do. We also need to save, by the way. It will not auto-save. You have to manually save. Now, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to load a project real quick here. And here you have a couple of, we've got a couple things started, but this is the one I wanted to focus on, okay? And so here I've got a lot of different panels. Okay, and the end result, it looks like this. In my card, I have an image for conjecture. I have adjective, verb, noun. I have fetch, kill, escort, gather, direction, terrain, and I have a number of 1 through 4, and these numbers here. Well, what does all that mean? Well, for me, I'll show you what that means, because I have one that's, well, it's almost done. We're gonna change it there. Actually, let's change it to 3. There we go. So here I have a card that's almost filled out. I probably could use to fill out more than just that. So I'm going to put all right, so here I have the adjective, the noun, the verb, my icon for imagery, for conjecture, and I also have these what I'm calling like quest seeds, and they're all numbered. I also have a number here for the quest seed so that I can draw another card, and it would tell me which one of these to choose. So if I drew another one, it would be 1 through 4, and if it was a 2, then I would know on this card I would be using the 2, in which a monster type or beast type has been terrorizing the local town or village from the shadows. It seems to come out at night, right? And there would be my quest seed. And they're all of different types, and I've got one of my cards here to kind of help out that the number 1 will always be fetch, number 2 will be kill, number 3 will be escort, number 4 will be gather. Though destroy might be a better word than kill. I don't really necessarily like that language, but. And then I also have a direction indicator. So for example, here I might put down northwest, or I could use a symbol if I wanted to, but we're going to put northwest. And then terrain is in case I might need terrain. So there we go. Okay. Now, this still may be at a point where you may be saying, gosh, that's still not really doesn't look that great. I don't know that I want my cards looking like that. I picture these glorious backgrounds and borders and all that stuff. Well, because this is a layered program, I actually added a different layer here. I added a quest background layer. And that's actually what gives, by the way, each of these their background color. I also added borders to each of these areas for each of these panels as well. Okay, so there's a lot of different things that you can play with in order to get what you need. And yeah, I mean, for my background right here, I could choose a professional image as my background, and for that matter, I could just have nothing but cards full of images if I wanted to go that route for help for conjecture. But the same goes to the border. I mean, it's an image. The border, the background is an image. You can have transparencies. Because you can combine these, and you can right-click to get things kind of back where they were. Control-Z works as you expect it to. Okay. You can copy, you can paste. There really is no limit to what you can design with this program. The only limit that you have is time, resources, in other words, your art that you have available to you or you're willing to use, and your imagination. Just like any other program, I mean, I think of professional programs put out by, some of the big name companies for spreadsheet programs, etc. They are still buggy as all get out, but yet they're professional programs. And this can be buggy sometimes, but I simply save and I back out, and when I come back in, I'm good when that does happen. But otherwise, it's a pretty clean interface. I can continue to add new categories of cards, etc. And as long as I'm willing to put in the time, there's just a lot that you can do. So let's kind of talk about needs and our iterative process. We've talked about that before. When we play our solo games, before we've talked about using Oracle systems with yes/no conjecture resources, quest construction, NPC creation, NPC reactions, event handling, enemy encounters, world map creation, town creation, map, room building, item discovery for weapons, potions, armor, etc., difficulty scaling, and growing threat. So if you create a list of those things, like you're sitting down, and this is what your solo role-playing session looks like, and you have this up on your screen, this program, you can create a resource that's specifically catered to your style of solo role-playing. You are not limited to whatever you've got. I don't know how many times I've had a solo role-playing resource for cards, which are a very powerful tool. And I just wish they were doing something else. Or I didn't like the art style. Or I wish they were combining effects with other cards. Well, now, if I want that, then really the only person I have to complain about is myself for not creating it and making it happen. Because I now have the ability to do that. That is, unless, of course, I've got reasonable time constraints in my life that would keep me from doing it. Though I would expect if I'm playing solo games, I would have time to design a card, right? I guess it just matters. It would depend on where I value my time being spent elsewhere. My wallet, getting resources I may not like as well as those I could do on my own, or spending time to make those resources. So, just some general thoughts when designing cards. Obviously we've talked about the fact that you can add icons, and I think it's important to think about things like coloring. Like, you can have grades of things. I could take this panel background and change it to green, yellow, or red. Same with icons. And I could have the colors themselves mean something. So, for example, if I had this panel be red, when I would draw this card initially, I would not let that color state define the fact that a monster beast has been terrorizing the local town. But I would draw another card that would have, for the number 2, and it would show me a color. And then that would be what would define the first card I drew. So that if it was red, it would be a tough monster to defeat, while if it was green, it would be an easy monster to defeat, right? If I have small icons next to things, for example, if I wanted to take this panel and I wanted to go to my main thing here, so I'll need to do it here because I can't do it on the individual cards. I could go ahead and make this text box a little bit smaller. I could then cut this a bit right there, turn this into an image, or an icon rather, choose the icon I wanted for it, and maybe I want this one to be difficulty or something else. And then I could change its color to be red for hard. And now, and this isn't very clean, but now I have an icon associated with it. And I could have a whole row of icons. These icons can mean whatever you want them to be. You could have a little cheat sheet that told you what your icons meant. So each one of these could have 3 or 4, or maybe you only have 2. But I can then color code those for different degrees of severity, right? There's just so much that you can do with cards to play around with them. I could even make the edges and the tops of the sides and the tops of the cards mean different things. So that if I laid out the cards in a certain way, they could interact with each other in a new way. There's been entire card games designed around how you position cards. You know, when I think about Race for the Galaxy and other symbol-heavy games, and I think about how there are entire systems designed from iconography alone. Though you can have a card do one thing, the power of the cards is the ability to do multiple things at once if you want them to. So I'm thinking, for example, of the Game Master Apprentice cards. They handle so many of the various different needs that we have as solo role players when we're talking about conjecture. We don't need an entire deck for one need at a time. This can reduce the amount of resources that you need on the table by quite a bit, especially when you consider that you're addressing your specific needs. There are a lot of resources that I have that provide needs that I don't need it to address. Sometimes 80% of the content or more are addressing things I don't really necessarily care about. And with that, I'm thinking about possibly the FlexTel system, where maybe I want to get at certain things sometimes, but not everything, or it's tending to address a lot of things I don't. All right. Hopefully this video wasn't necessarily too long, and it gave you a pretty good idea of what Card Creator can do for you. And no, this isn't a review of Card Creator. I guess it kind of ended up that way in a roundabout way. It's more actually a review, or not even a review. It's a conversation about what we as solo role players can do. And I think sometimes we may end up robbing ourselves through lack of knowledge or experience of of gameplay that could be possibly more streamlined, quicker, faster, easier. We know what we need at all times. We know what suits us, and we've already gotten comfortable with inside of our shells with conjecture and playing on our own. And I think maybe for some of us, maybe it's time that we start getting comfortable with how we like things and what feels comfortable to us. And if we had the ability to have someone design for us, in this case it would be yourself, what would that look like? And I think that could potentially just totally change up how you see your time spent solo role playing. And that's why I wanted to put this together today, because I felt like it could have a pretty big impact on really anybody who's willing to or just has the time. Some of us really honestly don't have the time for this, and it really is just simpler just to go out and buy something. And there are some really amazing tools out there in the form of cards, books, or otherwise. We've talked about that in my latest video. But hopefully that gets you into a frame of mind or a creative mindset. If you do happen to get Card Creator, I purchased this through Steam. I don't think that it's available anywhere else. If $40 is a bit much for you, you might look for like Steam sales. Sometimes you can find just like I said, some deals there where it might not be the price tag might not be so high. I think I got it when it was a little bit of a reduced price myself. But when I think about $40 and the cost of some of these cards sets that you can buy, and the fact that they're not catered to you and they're only addressing some of your problem when they could be addressing so much more, I think that that it's probably well worth the price as long as you've got the time. But all right, enough rambling from me. Hopefully this got your creative juices flowing. And as always, if you've taken the time to watch this far or not, I was happy to have you here, and thank you. Bye-bye.